Hello, hello. We are here today with Declan, who is playing Alcibiades, which took me a while to learn how to say. Hello, Declan.
Hello.
My first question is very simple. What's the best Shakespeare performance you've seen?
I did enjoy David Tennant's Macbeth. That was a long time ago since I've watched that now. If I'm honest, I have to say I haven't seen a lot of Shakespeare on stage. Not recently, anyway.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. Interesting. Okay, I will get back to
We'll get back to that one.
Yeah, we'll come back. I'll
think about that one later.
You'll remember it halfway through and just shout it out.
Oh shit, yeah.
Do you recall what your first ever Shakespeare role was? And can you tell us your thoughts, your evaluation on your first performance?
Yes, I can. It was second year of drama school, and it was Macbeth. I was playing Macbeth, and I remember thinking, I have no idea what I am doing here. But I had a great teacher. I had a woman called Trilby James who used to teach Shakespeare, rather, and she was, how do I put this? She was very strict and she demanded a lot, but she didn't only teach me about Shakespeare, I think she taught me how to become an actor, a proper actor, take the job seriously, and just delve deeper. And I think that was the first time that I at drama school, took a whole year and a half for me to realise, actually, if this is something that I want to do, I've got to pull my foot out. And I've not only got to want it, but I've got to try new things and just get away from this comfort blanket that I'd made for myself. And funnily enough, Shakespeare was the first time that I did that. And I really enjoyed it. I don't know if I was very good at it, but I definitely enjoyed it. And it was the first time I went, all right, okay, this is what it feels like to actually act. And I was like, okay, sure. So yeah, that was my first journey into Shakespeare.
And do you remember, was that before or after you had seen David Tennant's Macbeth? Was there any influence?
Sorry, it wasn't David Tennant's Macbeth, was it? It was David Tennant's Hamlet, that scene, so that's my fault. But yeah, that was great. But yeah, I think so. There was a lot of influences. I remember one thing she said to me early on. She said, Declan, you're not playing Macbeth, you're playing the great actor who's playing Macbeth. And I know it sounds so cliche, I'm sure many drama teachers have said that to people, and I was just like, you're so right, I am. So then I just kind of guess, I think you've always got to bring yourself to a role. There's certainly in some aspects, because you only can. I mean, we can put on a funny walk and a different voice and bulk up or lose weight, change our hair. But at the end of the day, emotionally, you can only bring yourself. And obviously you can use your imagination. But I think as soon as I started to relate to this person as me, then I kind of opened up a tin of worms and it all kind of came flooding in, really. And yeah, it was interesting.
What Shakespeare role, which you haven't played, would you love to do?
Ah, that's a good one. Iago.
A villain?
A villain, yeah. I think I've got a villain in me somewhere. It's funny because I think there's some traits that Iago shares with Alcibiades in some ways. But I think, do you know what I like about Iago? It's the fact that a lot of people play him as this stoic villain, and I think if I wanted to play him, I'd want to find reasons for why he is like he is and kind of make him a bit more human. Have I seen it live? No. Oh yeah, I have. I saw some people do it at drama school, and I thought the guy who played him was a great actor. He is a great actor, but it was kind of very Machiavellian, very Bond villain-esque, and I thought, oh, come on, you could do better than that. Do you know what I mean? In a way, I wanted to see the human in it. I wanted to see the pain and the jealousy that runs through that character, and the anxieties that he has, and that's why he's so manipulative. That's why he digs the knife in and twists it and gets what he wants. It's a very interesting character. I'd also like to play Hamlet because it just terrifies me. But I'm not ready for that yet. Definitely not. Maybe in a few years.
Well, Iago is actually the third biggest role in Shakespeare, and Hamlet's the first.
Right, there you go.
Which means you have to do Richard III now to do,
okay.
So you get all three of the top three.
Yeah.
Did you have any experience with Timon of Athens before this project? Either seeing it on stage, having read it, been in it before?
Absolutely not. I didn't even know it existed. Great answer.
No. It's an honest answer, and that honest answer is always the best. But you are no stranger. I've stalked your profile, by the way, so you're no stranger to acting on film. Has doing Shakespeare on film changed or challenged your style of acting on camera?
Massively. I'm so far out of my comfort zone, it's untrue. I don't like to prep anything that I'm going to do in terms of how I'm going to say things, my actions. I hate blocking. I actually hate rehearsals. If it's ever a project like this where I feel like I need to delve deeper, it's not something that I feel like I can access straight away. I go up north and I spend a month or so and I lock myself away and I do everything that I think I could possibly do to find who this character is. Very little of that is work on the language and work on what's actually happening. It's all between the lines. And I can do that with this, and that's what I'm going to do. When I come back from holiday at the end of this month, I've got 2 projects that I'm going real deep into. One of which is this, and I'm not drinking from there. I'm going to get fit. It's all about. He's such a physical character. But anyway, I digress. But I think for me, it's the kind of idea of having to really focus on the language. And Shakespeare is so hard on its sleeve. There is subtext, but for me, it's very much everything's there for the taking, and you've got to get it. And it's interesting rehearsing with people and seeing people's characters develop, as opposed to just rocking up on set and making the best of it and trying to hope that you're on form that day. Because when you're not, it is pretty horrible, I must say. When you're not hitting where you want to hit and you're thinking, oh God, this is it. This is that project out the window. Yes, I think the language has been difficult for me, especially if I've not done that much Shakespeare. And I've spent a long time translating it, and I found it very difficult to go through and use other people's translations, although they've helped massively. I don't think I would have been able to do it on my own. But I think I really need to understand what it is that my character is saying, but my relation to that. So there's kind of, for me, 3 tiers that you kind of have to get mastered before you even start to think about character. It's what does he want? What is he really saying to these people? And, you know, how does that translate? Not just into Shakespeare, but for me, how does that translate for me? And I don't know, I found that very difficult, and I'm still working on it, I think. The rhythm, of course, is the first step, and finding your way through that, but also bringing it away from that kind of theatrical world of Shakespeare that we all know, and kind of really grounding it in truth. And I think everything you do has to be justified somewhere along the line. I know it's got to sound pretty and it's got to hit the rhythm, but it's fine. It doesn't work if you're not connected underneath. And it's just difficult. It's just very, very difficult. But we're getting there, one step at a time.
How do you feel about your role? Do you like your character? Was it easy to relate to your character's motives and intentions?
I absolutely adore my character. So for those of you that don't know, Alcibiades is a real person that lived. And there's no one sat on the fence about Alcibiades. You either love him or you hate him. It's a little bit like Donald Trump, but without the silly wig. And but I am wearing a wig actually. Anyway, but some people think he was one of the greatest thinkers of the time, and some people think he was actually the reason for the fall of Athens and the empire. He did a lot of questionable things. He was a very determined person, unbelievably clever, an unbelievable general and fighter. But unbelievably manipulative and very, very dangerous. And I think he's the kind of person that he will meet someone and he will figure out instantly who that person wants him to be, and he will become it if he thinks he can get something from it. He loved Athens. He betrayed Athens. But he's very complicated, and I think he has this incredible ability to just have this resistance to everything, to anxiety, to failure, to any kind of negative emotion or trait that makes a man not achieve what he wants. If he wakes up in the morning, he looks in the mirror and he says, if I'm going to go and do that, he goes and gets it. It doesn't matter who he stands on in the way to get there. So that's why I think he shared some characteristics with Iago, but I think he's driven by something different. He's driven by ambition and driven by his love for Athens as well, I think. But he's a very, very, very complicated character. He's a big bag of contradictions. Yeah, I don't know.
That's very interesting what you say about he will become the person he thinks the other wants to be. So I have to ask, it's not one of my questions, but your relationship with Timon, especially that beautiful monologue where you're talking about your relationship with Socrates, are you manipulating Timon? Are you playing the, lover's too strong a word, but the alluring, desirable young man specifically for him? In your mind, obviously, regardless of what the script says, what do you feel in that moment you're doing?
Honest answer, I'm not sure yet, but I think he's always manipulating people. I think when we say manipulate, it kind of has negative connotations, but I don't think he's doing it in a malicious way. I think he just wants to be loved. I mean, he was the world's most famous man at the time. Everyone knew who he was. Everyone wanted to be him, and he used to get everything he wanted. So, in our story, Alcibiades was kind of mentored by Timon, and I think he went into the army at a very young age and wants to become the greatest general that ever lived. Who's the best person to get in with? Timon. So he'll do everything for Timon, and I think he does genuinely love Timon. And there's a point in the film that baffles me, and this is the kind of key moment for Alcibiades, I think, where Timon is left in this cave dying, obviously not well, and Alcibiades stumbles across him and he wants to help him. But there's a point where he's given a choice. He's got two roads. It's glory in Athens or Timon. And he chooses Athens and glory because he can't resist it. And I think that's not because he loves him. That's not the hardest decision he has to make in the whole film. And I think it really kills him, but it doesn't matter because nothing stands in his way. And I think that's what paints the picture of Alcibiades for me. I don't think it makes him a bad guy, because I think actually in Timon of Athens, as opposed to him in real life, he's a better person in Timon of Athens. And he goes full circle. You see the progression from a boy to a man, but in order to become the man that he wants to be, he doesn't stamp on Timon because he loves him, but he could stay, and he doesn't. And I don't know why yet, but I think it's ambition. But I think, I'm not going to say, I don't want to ruin the end. I don't want to ruin the end. But I think except for when he's in the room with Socrates, he's the smartest man there and he knows it. Even if he won't make that out. But Socrates is completely bottoms him, I think.
Do you see any of Declan in Alcibiades as I take a step back?
I think, yes. Yeah, I do. I don't think I'm quite as Machiavellian as he is. I don't think I could step on anyone. I'm too nice, I think, to be Alcibiades. But I think the chameleon side of it I can be. I don't know. I think I'm not as determined as he is. I would like to think I am, but I mean, that man just has this incredible ability just to resist anything. Whereas I succumb to anxiety from time to time and the idea that I'm not good enough. And I think everyone feels it. I don't think he doesn't feel that, but I think he just says no, and he leaves that at the door.
There's a determined drive in that I understand what you're saying, that he doesn't question himself. He doesn't question, and even if he does, he's suppressed those worries so long because it gets in the way of his drive.
Yeah, I think he feels them, but he just deals with them. There's a book that I'm reading, or I was reading when we were into rehearsals, called Tides of War, And it's a brilliant book. And it's about Alcibiades, really. But it's about the whole Peloponnesian War and the whole era that this film is based. And it's clever because it's not from his point of view, because no one can really get Alcibiades. So it's from another soldier's point of view, a good friend of Alcibiades called Polymedes. And there's a moment, I can't remember which battle it is, but they lose to the Spartans. And everyone thought Alcibiades was dead, but he's just been fighting on his own in the middle of this thing. And they lose, and the Spartans are riding off in their colours. And apparently Polymedes just hears this wail, and he turns around, and Alcibiades is out on the battlefield crying. And he said it's not because he's sad that he lost, it's just because he was just absolutely baffled by the glory of the Spartans. He was just baffled by it. He said, how? He just admires victory and glory, and he's just a crazy cat. He really is. But that is just another kind of snippet of what I imagine this guy to be like. It's just, he idolizes victory and praise and glory, I think. And that's what rules him.
That's a very good answer. It's making me feel quite intimidated about my own character work. You're rattling off books you've read, and I'm like, my character's name is Lucilla. Done. I do more than that. Anyway. This film is very much about connecting with the modern world. How do you feel your character arc or story connects to the modern day?
So, this is my only qualms about the story, so to speak, because we meet Alcibiades as this kind of playboy character turning up to a party drunk with lots of girls and horses and carts, and he's very much kind of a side piece at the beginning. He's just there, kind of lapping it up, and then the story takes a kind of turn, and we follow his character quite deeply, and he kind of changes the course of the play in terms of, well, what happens is basically the court or Athens sentence one of his soldiers to death, one of his friends, and he says, no, that's not okay. Basically, I'm above the law. So what does he do? He raises up an army and takes over Athens and gets what he wants. So I was kind of like, I don't know if the moral story of my character is a good one. But then again, it is, I don't know, for other characters, like Timon and the false friends, they kind of get what's coming to them, I think, because the character says, go through and kill every man, woman, and child who... Oh, no, he doesn't, actually. That's wrong. That's what he wants to do. But then he changes his mind at the very last minute, and he says, well, we'll establish democracy again, and everyone who has wronged myself or Timon or anyone else in this regime, we will put them through a court of law, and they will be... What does he say? They will be tried at heaviest answer. I can't remember the line. But... So it kind of does come full circle. He kind of starts off as a playboy, becomes a tyrant, takes over the city, and then kind of gives it back over in good gesture, as a good gesture. So I don't really know what the morals are for my character. It's kind of confusing, but they were my only qualms about the whole story as a general for Alcibiades, because what he does isn't really right. He does raise above the law and takes over a city and kills millions of people. I think it's about the actions that he does. He raises an army and kills thousands of people, I imagine, outside the walls of Athens. And I don't think he's ever going to go through the city and murder everyone like Timon suggests, that horrific speech that James does so well about killing every man, woman, and babe or whatever. That shocks Alcibiades. I don't think he ever thought that he would see that in Timon. But what happened in Athens at the time in the real life, there was kind of a dawn of a new age where the golden era was over. Or the era, I don't know if I think it was called the era of enlightenment, with Pericles and all these people doing these great thinkers. But then the old were moving out and the new were moving in, and there was that kind of clash between the two. And Alcibiades was very much a new thinker, and he thought popularity could win over democracy and all this kind of stuff. And in a way it did for a while. I don't know if that's a good thing. And that's very much what happens similar in this play, where you've got all the old councillors with their old ways of thinking, and he's there trying to shake it up, and they're not letting him, so he does something about it.
And not to compare him to Trump again, but actually popularity winning over democracy.
This is what I mean.
So are you saying if Alcibiades was on his dragon and he heard the bells of Athens ring out, he would have been merciful?
Yes, I think he would. But we've got to remember, this was the man that used to go into cities and instead of fighting would, well, I guess, manipulate world leaders into putting down their weapons. That's what he was unbelievably good at. He had the gift of the gab. He was very charming, very manipulative. And he used to go into cities and say, look, this is what we can offer you, and this is what we can do together. We're more powerful together. And somehow he used to charm leaders.
What challenged you about this role? Or is still challenging you?
I'm not a big guy. And Alcibiades is this great hero and this warrior. So it's finding the presence, and I think I can do the charming. And I think that's something that I can bring to it. That's something I always thought I could, but it's the kind of the caged lion that's inside of him that I need to work on. The kind of 1,000-yard stare if someone doesn't do what he wants. That's what I'm trying to bring to the role. That's why I'm trying to get fit. Yeah, I'm trying to find the warrior in him, I think.
Declan looks perfectly fit as is, by the way. Just he's not sitting here like Orson Welles or Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now. We're going to have lots of shadows on Alcibiades.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But are you therefore associating bulk with the lion? Because if we think of Greek heroes, if we think Achilles versus Ajax, Ajax was far bigger, but Achilles was the far better warrior.
Yes. Yeah, so I think the Greek obsession at the time with the human form is a massive thing. So I think it would just help. It's not so much about the aesthetics of it. It's more, it would just help me feel like a leader and a war hero. I think if I try and do some, or I keep up with, I am not drinking. I know Alcibiades is a very heavy drinker, but I've got that down to a T. If I start becoming and doing these training, like you would in the military, and living like that, and I think it will just help me feel like a captain and a warrior.
Are you a bit of a method actor?
I don't know.
Some of this sounds a little method.
Some of it. I think I just do whatever helps me to switch that tick, and you can feel it. I mean, I've done some recent work where you just turn up and you do it, and it's okay. You can pass it, but it's when something clicks inside, and you're like, okay, right, I understand this a little bit more now. And I think it's a feeling, and I can't rationalize it, and I can't say this works for me because it's different every time. And I've only ever felt it once or twice doing 2 different roles. And I want to feel like that for Alcibiades. I want it to click, and I want to be okay, right. I am this soldier. I could go out into the battlefield and take on 50 men.
I love that. Once you're ready to take on the entire cast. At the same time, if you pull a Dustin Hoffman and hand me an acting note between takes, I will punch you.
Ever do that. Is that what you did?
What expectations did you have about the character before you started that have since changed?
I think it always changes. I think it will change. It will definitely change by the time I get there, because you look at the character on like a one-dimensional kind of basis when you first read the character, and you read it. It's not until you sit down and start to. Okay, it's going to sound so methody and so rubbish, but everything.
I'm not a method actor. This is going to sound really methody.
But it is so. It's all rubbish, isn't it? But I mean, it is all rubbish. Just get off your high horse, Deck. But I feel like it has to be parallels. Everything in my life and this character, if I don't understand a part of this character, it's probably because I don't understand it in real life. And if this character goes into a room and can hold that room in the palm of his hand, if I can't do that, in any given situation in my life, then I'm not hitting that on the film or in the character. So what does he do that I don't do at the moment? Well, I think he's very articulate, which sometimes I feel like I'm not. So that's something that I will have to work on. And it's stuff like that. So these things that I saw as him at the beginning, I thought, well, he's a great character. I thought, you know, he doesn't give a shit about anyone else. Sorry, he doesn't care about anyone else, which I don't think is true. I never used to think he cared about Athens. I just thought he just wants success and victory. But I think his heart really is with Athens. And the people of Athens, especially the Alcibiades in this story. But I think he firmly believes now, which was different at the time, that he is the person to lead Athens to greatness. And I don't think he trusts anyone else to do it. That's what I think he's driven by, not just by this selfish need to be king. I think he honestly, physically believes from the bottom of his soul that he is the only person that can do that. That's what I think drives him at the moment. It'll probably change. You might have to ask me on set sometime later down the line. But yeah, I think that's the differences from what I originally read and now.
That is very Daenerys, though, because she believed, she knew exactly what was right for the city.
Maybe.
And it all worked out wonderful, and she's happy being queen.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's a lot more complicated than Daenerys. A little less one-dimensional, hopefully. Not in terms of how she's played, just in terms of the character that's written, I think. I don't know. Because I think he's constantly pulled in different ways. And I think the whole thing with Socrates, and that's brilliant speech, that he talks about his night for Socrates. And this is what I mean. Like, when I first read that, and the way I was going to deliver it at first is very, very different to how I'm thinking of delivering it now. Because I thought I wanted to play, you know, really get out the emotions in it and stuff. And I think, no, he's just completely and utterly gobsmacked by this moment that this man that he has met has not succumbed to his charms, and he can't believe it. He's thinking, who is this man, Socrates, this old man that some people think he's ridiculous and he is stupid. He is just this fantastic human being that I don't understand. And that's what I think attracts him to Socrates. And I think he's the only man in Athens that doesn't succumb to anything that he does, his charm, his power. I think he's just baffled by him, and that's why I think he wants him as a companion.
And why he potentially offers himself to Socrates. It's almost the young cub bowing to, or the gorilla. Which was one that you bow to the leader to acknowledge their greatness, and the allure of Alcibiades,
like gorilla, that kind of thing.
Finding someone who actually is in his eyes greater than him,
uncorruptible as well, I think. And what does he say? What's the lines? He said, "Shamed I was, yet so full of admiration for this man who's matching spirit and restraint. I doubt I'll ever meet again." That's the line, and that's how it ends. And I think, why does that speech end there? Because he's got nothing else to say. He's just absolutely gobsmacked. And I think he's gobsmacked that he's telling Timon this story. He's like, oh God, what have I just got lost in? It's just crazy. I don't know what to do. Because he hasn't returned his love as well. I think, yeah, it's a very complicated, strange relationship. That's what I think is good about it. I don't think you have to understand it. As an actor playing it, you've just got to be taken aback by it.
Right. We're just going to take a quick pause, because I should pause this at some point. We'll be back. And we're back. Sound effects. Okay. Hello again, Declan.
Hello.
Now, I'm going to start with this. We, sadly, don't actually say one word to each other in the entire film. What would Alcibiades say to Lucilius?
I think you'd probably give him tips on how to court that lady. Probably.
Probably. I like that. Or you just say more wine.
Yeah, one of the two. Probably both.
Probably, yes. The role of ritual is key in this film. How do you feel your character is part of or away from such ceremonies?
It's a good question, actually. I haven't thought about it. I think certain tradition. Well, I mean, there's the tradition of handing down the sword, which I don't think he expects at all. Which I think part of him in that moment is unbelievably honoured. This is what he's always wanted. But it comes at a bad time. It comes at a time where he's not. He's here to help Timon out with his money problems. And Timon's. It's like a. I don't know. It's like scoring a goal against your home team, I guess. But then what other rituals happen?
Well, there would be the ritual in the Council of Athens, and who gets to speak, who doesn't, the hands going out.
Yeah.
And certainly the role of that Sarah plays is very ritual heavy.
Yes.
But almost
very interesting role. I like that role.
Like we've alluded to it a little bit in rehearsal, but I'm sure we'll do that more in October. Who gets to sit when you eat? Even such simple things actually as when I bring wine, which is most of my job. And how I bring wine and when you get to have wine. Like every part of their lives is ritual heavy.
Yeah, it is, very much so. I think it's something that we've talked about in rehearsals, but I think it's something that we really need to ingrain. I think it's something that everyone needs to be on the same page about. Because like you said, there's very much the kind of, everyone greets people in certain ways. And I think, obviously, there'll be rituals that happen within the home, rituals that happen within the sexes, and rituals that happen within the army and the navy, that all play different roles in, it's all power, isn't it? And I think one thing that I find difficult about the scene in which my character is at court, I find that very difficult with the hands because it is very ritualistic and yet everyone has their turn to speak, and it makes it very hard to get your point across. But I think it works because it kind of frustrates me. I think it frustrates the character. I think it works like that. But I think I just need to have a deeper understanding of everyday life in ancient Athens. I think that'll give me a clearer idea of how things work. So I did do a bit of research on that about a year ago. But again, it's something I need to touch on again. So I'm not really too sure about the rituals.
You just said something very interesting. You said ritual is power. And that, until you just said that, I didn't really connect those two. But in many ways, you're absolutely right. The ritual is about power, but not who has it, but it's control. Ooh. It's control in the scenario. So in the council, your frustration is you don't have the freedom to actually fight your corner. And it's about that power of stopping you. And it's designed that way. So that is a very interesting thing.
That's why I think it works. It really annoys me, but it works. And I think that's what Maximianno has done quite well in that scene, I think. Because at first I wasn't sure. I thought it should be more like a modern-day court scene, but now it is very much, and it works, I think.
And then who gets to sit down first is establishing power in the room instantaneously. So that's very well done. I know that. One pillar of Timon of Athens is the political world. Now, you've alluded to this, but when asked specifically, can you compare your character to a modern politician?
I would have to say, that really annoys me, but I'll probably have to say Donald Trump. I think we have this idea of Donald Trump and what he looks like, and it's very different to what he represents. And imagine someone with the charm and charisma of Barack Obama, with the intentions and the ideals of Donald Trump. Very, very dangerous man. And I think it's just, he's pushing a new world, and new ideas that some people aren't ready for.
We need to create a campaign slogan with your face on it, and it should say, "Let's make Athens hate again."
Yeah. I remember reading somewhere in my research a few months ago that Alcibiades hated the idea of democracy. He didn't think people were worthy of making a decision, or something along those lines. I can't remember. There was a certain word that he was pro something, but it wasn't. It was like the polar opposite of democracy. I can't remember the word. But don't hold me to that.
Yes. An odd question. Have you worked with CGI before?
Yes, I have, but not in terms. I played a character that spontaneously combusted into flames, so I didn't have to do anything. I just kind of led there, and then I burst into flames. So that was all done afterwards. There's no. Was there green screen now? I think. Yeah, maybe there was, but it was very short and sweet. So never really. I wouldn't say I have any idea what I'm doing.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Have you?
Have I? Oh, all right. I'm going to ask.
Change it up.
I played a wizard recently in this sci-fi series, and we're not going to put this in, but it was terrible.
Okay.
But I got to throw fireballs and electricity and a whirlwind. It was the wizard from the computer game Fable.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I became an actor to play a wizard. So I got to tick that off my bucket list, and I loved it. Well, originally, I just wanted as a child to be a wizard, and then I learned that then magic doesn't exist, and I was like, oh well, I'll have to become an actor and be one that way. It's the only way I could be a wizard. And we did some green screen in the YouTube studios in London, which was very cool, very surreal, because on the final film, those scenes looked awesome, because it's this like headquarters thing. But obviously, you're in that room, there's very little there, and you're just like, oh god, what's it going to look like?
Yeah, well, I believe I'm riding a CGI horse and attacking CGI people. I don't know what's going to happen. I have this fear that they're going to put me with this wig on in front of a massive fan, and I'm going to be riding a horse and screaming, like, ah! Wig flying off, in my face, falling off the horse. We'll see.
You'll look very much like Colin Farrell and Alexander.
I actually love Colin Farrell. Not so much in Alexander, but I'll take it.
Have you named your CGI horse?
I haven't yet. Pete. I have now.
Pete the CGI horse. Is that Pete the name, like Pete the Dragon, or is that going to be Pete like the where Scotland makes the whiskey?
Oh, I like that one. Yeah. That is actually quite fitting for Alcibiades. I think if whiskey was around at that time, he would have drank copious amounts.
Have you ever filmed abroad before? Or performed abroad
Yes,
before?
I have filmed abroad a few times. Ireland, Wales, Hamburg. Yes.
What did you do in Hamburg?
It's my first ever job, and it was an advert for a company called Otto, and I was putting a cake in an oven. I don't know why they thought they needed an English actor for that, to fly him out to Hamburg when anyone with two hands and a cake could have done it. But yep, they decided that it was a good idea, and I went up there. It was my first professional job. I'd like to say I've come on a long way from that, but I'm not too sure.
Do you have a clip I could see of you putting this cake in an oven?
I could probably find it for you, yeah.
I'd be very excited.
Okay.
In my mind, though, you do it with one hand just to show that's what you bring to the role. It's like everyone else would have done two hands. I did this one hand.
Well, the thing is, they didn't even trust me to open the oven. Someone else opened the oven for me, and I just slide the cake in there.
Wow.
Yeah, it's great. Put some sprinkles on it first. See ya.
You trained for years to slide cakes in
The
ovens.
beautiful rainbow.
Yes. Which is very apt. It is Pride Month.
Very apt.
For this film, we rehearsed, which is very different. Most films, obviously, as you know this, but I'm just saying it for the listeners at home, you don't really rehearse for film. How does this experience differ from other film work?
Very different, very different. Just because everyone is a lot clearer on what they're doing. I like to have a table read once and then never want to see anyone again until the performance. I think it has its benefits. I think for Shakespeare you need to do it because everyone needs to have an idea of how the rhythm works and the language and how everyone can kind of work together. But I also think it makes people, if people find something that works in rehearsals one day, they latch onto it, I think, and then they stick with it. And that's it. It never evolves. and that's fine. But then if someone changes something on the day, let's say me and you are doing a scene, and I decide in this moment that I want to scream at you, and you've rehearsed it 100 times in one way, you're stuck with that, and I think it just sometimes can make things a bit stale if you overdo it, I think. But also, you can kind of hit a mark that you know is good, and it's always going to hit that mark. So it has its pros and cons.
I don't know. Film intimidates me in that way.
I get it. Film intimidates me, and I always know if I've not done my prep or not done my job right, if I'm constantly trying to catch my glimpse of myself in the monitor, or I'm thinking, oh, that take wasn't very good. I mean, whatever comes out of your mouth in that moment, if you've listened and you're present, it's going to be right. Might not be the best, might not be the take of your choosing, but it's going to be right. And I know when I catch myself and I think, this is the problem with Shakespeare. I'm always thinking in terms of, right, okay, this line, this intonation, this, what does it mean? It forces me into my head, and I don't want to be in my head as an actor. I don't even want to think about acting or camera or continuity. I think it's someone else's job. If I'm not doing something in a take that I was doing before in a different thing, tell me after the thing, and I'll try and get it in there and remember. But I think just gotta hope to God you're doing the right thing. Pray to the acting gods that you're doing the right thing. It is terrifying, though. It is terrifying, and then I just gotta get over it. You gotta hope to God you gotta try and get over it. Does that answer your question? I don't know.
Yes, yeah. I believe it does.
Not what it was.
The question was rehearsal differing from film, but the spontaneity, that's very much what we're talking about. And then we moved on to Michelle Pfeiffer. Because she's amazing.
She is.
I don't know why I went really high there. What do you expect from a director?
Freedom. Freedom and to create, I think the most important thing is to create an environment where people can thrive as actors. That's all I want here. You can have your ideas about how you want things to be, and I really like that in a director. I don't want someone who's a pushover, but I just want someone to create an atmosphere where I feel like I can just be free and create stuff. That's all I ask from a director. You can be however you want to be, you can scream and shout, but as long as you create something open, then sure, I'll be your actor and you can be my director.
Nice. And on that note, what is it like to work with Maximianno Cobra?
It's great. I've never, again, like we discussed before, the man is so passionate about this project and about what he's doing. And I think he's pulled me in ways that I could never pull myself, because I'm not a classical. I would never say I'm a classical actor. I've trained fine and I'm doing a classical piece, but I think that's where I struggle. With the language, with the dexterity of it all, and kind of just the Shakespeare side of it. I think I can do all my locking myself away and or whatever, and finding this person and finding my parallels with that character, but at the end of the day, it is Shakespeare, and it has to be done. We have a set of rules, and you can't really break them. I think he's helped me on that journey, and it's been a bumpy one. And I have to say, yeah, he does fill me with confidence. He does let me do my thing. I think we meet and we grind at times, not in a good way, in a creative way. I think that's healthy for a director and an actor. I'm enjoying it.
Good. What do you take away from the story of Timon of Athens?
If you have enough power, you can do whatever you want. Apparently. I don't know.
But is that true? If you think of Timon, he certainly had a great amount of power.
Yeah, but he gave it away.
Ah.
That's the problem. And I don't think that's a good or a bad thing. I think he was an unbelievably generous man. I think Timon is one of the only, well, at one point, one of the only truly... It's such a complicated character again, which is great. I know on the surface, I kind of, whenever I read Shakespearean characters straight up, I'm like, oh, you're so one-dimensional. When you really go into it, they're not at all. But ask yourself, why is Timon giving everything away? Why does he feel the need to shower everyone with gifts? That's not for me to answer, that's for James to answer, but I think it's a very interesting question. I think the whole play circles around that question. It's an interesting one. I'm not going to answer it. It's not my question to answer. I don't really know what I take away from it, but yeah, I don't know.
No, I think that's very fair, because actually something my character struggles with at the end is he doesn't understand why Timon did it either, and he can't process that. And so you're absolutely right, that is for James to answer, or if James chooses to not answer,
yeah,
leave
exactly.
it up to the audience.
But maybe he doesn't have to. I just think it's something that is a very interesting question.
He has to know, though. It's a bit like Hamlet. You don't have to necessarily say if he's mad or not, but as an actor, you have to know if he's mad or not.
But then I think, well, we all have our problems in our personalities in life. Maybe, I don't know, whatever it is. And we're in denial, aren't we, about these problems that we have. And I think that's okay to be in denial. As an actor, you just got to know that there's something wrong. You don't have to get I don't know, maybe you do. It's a hard one for James. He's got such a difficult part as it is, with so many lines, so many speeches, but it's a big question that I think he has to ask, maybe. I don't think it's for us. Maybe I don't think we need to know, maybe.
I agree. Final question.
Final question. There we go.
That was a bad sound effect. We're going to put some over, maybe. I don't know. Oh dear. Lastly, what will happen to your character after? Do you feel there's hope for your character, for the world, by the end of the film?
I know what happens to my character.
Yes, you have a very unique advantage over everyone else.
Oh yeah, that's why. Yeah, definitely. Well, I know what happens, but I think obviously it's Shakespearean, it's different, and it is different. I think he's going to carry on messing stuff up. And I don't mean like messing stuff up as in ruining stuff, I mean just shaking things up, I think is a better term. He'll always push for more. And eventually, should I tell you what actually happens to the end?
Yes, please do.
I think he comes back to Athens. This might not be right, because I haven't looked at my research in a while, but I know that he lived in a house in the middle of nowhere with his wife or mistress, and someone had put a hit out on him, basically. And I believe in the tides of war, it's bandits, but Polymedes, his best friend, is told, do you want to go and kill Alcibiades? And they surround his house, and he goes, all right then, and he charges out into, a little bit like 300, out into the array of bandits that kill him, and he gets murdered in the end. For all of his deceiving and manipulation that he's done over, he's made a lot of enemies by the time he's an old man.
Which is true of all politicians.
Yes, very much so. But I mean, I don't think he's got a safe place anymore. Because a lot of his people were sentenced to death as well. All of his friends. I believe Socrates was. I think so.
Yeah.
And he was in a place where he couldn't do anything about it. And yeah, he was murdered. Very sad. But he goes out in style.
Yes. Thank you so much, Declan, for doing that interview.